Hi, everybody. It's Mike from Hear the Watchman. And today on the Watchman's Report, we are going international once again. We were in Israel the other day. We've been in the UK several times. But today we're going to the north of us, up to Canada, to talk to a couple of people who have become dear friends of mine. It's Brad and Audrey. They are Canadian citizens. And what we want to talk about today is what is happening in Canada? What is going on? Let's start out with you, Audrey. What is going on in Canada?
Oh my goodness. You guys in the States have experienced it during the past 8 years, and we're just starting to experience it in Canada, and we're all in shock. We honestly never thought that we would be seeing what we're seeing now in Canada this soon, in all honesty. I don't even know where to begin. I can read headlines if you like.
Just say what's on your heart, Audrey. We want to know the truth about what's happening in Canada.
What's on my heart is that I'm very concerned that our Prime Minister is painting Canadians out to be people that we're not. He walks around telling everybody that we're, accepting and welcoming and these great Canadian people, yet on the other hand, then says that we're not by enforcing motions like the M103 motion, for example, that says that now we're so hateful that we're bashing Muslims, and we're not. We're concerned about our country, is what we are. We have, laws now that say, like now we just introduced the M80. Sorry, it's so brand new. I don't even know what it's called.
Brad, why don't you chime in while she's looking this up? What do you think's going on?
Bill 89 is what it is. Bill 89.
Oh yeah, Bill 89. Well, it's Bill 89 is being introduced right now in Ontario. So as a provincial, or your equivalent would be a state level law. But the danger with that is it's that whole problem of how you cook a frog in the pot. You just turn it up a degree at a time. It'll swim around, think it's in a hot tub. By the time it realizes the water is too hot, it's cooked and it can't get out. So we are in that same period. And I actually agree with you, Audrey, that I can't believe how fast this has gone downhill. I never would have guessed it. I've been a Canadian all my life. I've lived in Canada since I was born, so 1960s. And I'm looking at Trudeau. Actually, Justin Trudeau's father was the prime minister in the 70s. My dad and I have talked at length about the damage that he did, and we're still paying off some of the debt that was incurred. He built a stadium in Montreal, part of the whole Expo, the Olympics in 1976. So they built this massive monstrosity. It cost them $1 billion to build an Olympic stadium in 1970s. So today, I don't know what that would cost, but that was a major oversight. People were reporting cement trucks coming in and out and leaving with full cement, but billing for this. So there's a lot of, I would say, corruption going on. I don't see much difference with his son. I think he's just carrying on his father's legacy. And they were known to be very sympathetic towards communist dictators like Castro's, visiting them regularly. There's pictures of Justin as a baby being held by Fidel with Margaret. And I kind of wonder, when you look at pictures, I don't know what to believe of this, but you've seen this, right, Audrey? He looks like the spitting image of Fidel Castro, not his father, Pierre. So yeah, I'll let your viewers figure that out. Just do a little Google search on that, Justin Trudeau and Fidel. I think, honestly, he's not that intelligent an individual, in my opinion. He couldn't be doing this much destruction so quickly unless he had help. And it's quite well known that he brought in George Soros' organization to help increase the refugee influx from his original target of 250,000 a year to 500,000 a year. We're only a country of 36 million people, second largest landmass in the world. So what is he trying to do? Because even just economics, you look at supply and demand, it's going to create problems for jobs. We haven't the infrastructure to vet those supposed refugees properly. So this is a major experiment that I think time's going to obviously prove out what's going to be the outcome of this. The thing for your viewers, though, is, you know, our nearest border is with the Americans. The United States border is the longest unprotected border in the world. In my opinion, if this doesn't change, Donald Trump better start looking at building a northern wall.
Well, here, guys, you know, I mean, a question that I would have for you, I mean, we see reports here of our Muslim refugees that are going up to upstate New York and crossing the border on foot. They're leaving their cars, their belongings, everything on the U.S. side, and they walk across. And when they're greeted by your Border Patrol, they simply say, "We want asylum," and they're taken in. Is this what's happening up there?
Absolutely.
And go ahead, Audrey.
Yeah, absolutely. And the people in Manitoba, I mean, they're just shaking their heads. They're like, you know, it's not that they don't want to help, it's that they don't have the resources to help. They have nowhere to house these people that are coming in, and now they're wanting to take a seniors home and take that over, kick them out basically, and put in the Muslim families that are coming in. I mean,
yeah,
it's ridiculous.
Like when the first influx of refugees started coming in, I was shocked because Justin Trudeau and his government authorized evacuating all the 7 of the Canadian military bases across Canada, to turn them into refugee and temporary housing centers. So these guys and women were being kicked off the base. It was quite tragic to see them packing up their boxes and leaving what was their place where they're supposed to be defending our country. And to boot, he's been doing a bunch of upgrades to the areas. My understanding is that there is mosques being set up for their religious services. I mean, this is probably just an opinion, but I have a hunch he's either very sympathetic to Islam and the Muslim cause, or he may have actually converted at some point. But nothing's ever been conclusively confirmed on that. He's never come out and said so. But his actions seem to show, I think, that he's certainly someone we got to watch for.
Well, I think that what's important, folks, that you understand is, you know, Brad and Audrey, myself, my wife, we're all Christians, and we want to help anybody that we can help. But you know, somewhere you got to draw a line in the sand.
Right.
We should believe that we are all the evil ones, and that we should be beheaded. And at some point, you have to stand up and protect your country, which I think is beginning to happen here in the United States. But I fear that that you might have maybe Trudeau is your Obama. I mean, do you guys think that or feel that way?
Yeah, he has the nickname of Obama II as one of his nicknames. So, and we are seeing it. I mean, yeah.
Well, we've also, his first nickname was Prime Minister Selfie. So.
Yeah, Prime Minister Selfie.
And then, or the Shiny Pony, which he really hated. So.
Yeah, China gave him the nickname of Potato Jr. Little.
You know, as a world leader and a statesman, if you've seen some of the pictures, he doesn't compose himself or hold himself very well. And like there's a scene I saw where he was trying to muscle in. He's trying to kind of get into the discussion group at a world event. I don't know what it was. China was there, states were there, and he was kind of left out. So he doesn't have the statesmanship, I think, is one thing that's missing. He's not like what I remember Obama being, more of a community organizer.
Well, I guess, I mean, you know, here's the question. I mean, here in America, we had to ask ourselves this for 8 years, but how did this happen? How did he get elected? I mean, I looked him up today. I read some stuff about him on the internet. He is the Liberal Party. What happened in Canada that they elected such a liberal, young, inexperienced prime minister?
You go ahead, Audrey.
That's exactly it. Most of the voters were that as well. He really appealed to the younger generations. the generations that forgot what our veterans have done for this country, what our veterans have done, you know, to get us the freedoms that we have. And, you know,
Bingo.
that is exactly what it is. And, you know, he's taking everything that Canada stands for. And, you know, he, like I said before, he's proud of it, but then yet turns around and basically treats Canadian citizens like we're haters now. Like we're uncompassionate, uncaring. We, you know, we're intolerant. It's, you know, we're not those people. We're not those people.
Well, you know what
I can absolutely, you know what, folks, I want to let you know something about these two individuals. First of all, Audrey has been to, I think, 3 Hear the Watchman conferences. I mean, and believe me, she has been in the trenches helping us and volunteering there. I mean, she has all the compassion in the world. Brad, I met in Priest River, Idaho, which is not too far from the Canadian border. But I met him there, and he and I have stayed in touch for the past couple of years. He's tried to make it to the Hear the Watchman conferences, but things came up and he couldn't make it. I think he's going to be there in August, August 21st or August 18th through the 21st in Boise. Are just, they're real people. They're real people up in Canada suffering through what we suffered through for 8 years here in America. And you know, it's sad. I got to tell you guys, you know, when I was younger, my parents took me on a trip and we went all the way across your country, went in up in Washington and drove all the way over to Niagara Falls on the border. And I saw everything and how beautiful and clean your country is. And today, when we watch the news reports, it's a different country. What do you guys feel about that?
Well, I mean, if you saw the news last week, if it made it to the States, Audrey, you probably remember this. There was a explosion that happened back in Toronto in the banking district. So I don't know whether that was tied to any Islamic terrorism efforts or not. That all seems to get squashed in the media. They never talk about the ideological origins of some of these perpetrators. It seems to be brushed under the rug, which that's a very telling statement right there, is that they won't actually admit what the real enemy is. Audrey, your thoughts?
Audrey, what do you think?
Well, I mean, just, you know, reading some of the headlines, I mean, you know, Trudeau, Canadians have to move beyond mere tolerance toward acceptance.
Yeah.
So acceptance of what, right? Like acceptance of everything. Well, then turn that around, flip it around. You have to be acceptant of Christians as well. You know, like it seems that the way he talks, when you actually really listen, step back and listen to what he's saying, it's like he has 2 different sets of rules. You know, and then paints Canadians out to be the bad guys, and all the other cultures, especially, you know, Islam, as, you know, being persecuted. Well, I mean, you know, if you're going to set rules for one group, you have to set rules for the other group. So, I mean, he's just double talking. He's just, I mean, what says doesn't make sense. I mean, when you step back, there's really no issues. He's creating issues and dividing Canada is what he's doing, and that's the concern. Nobody hates anybody. Nobody's, you know, not wanting to help. That, you know, all of that. It's just, when you step back and analyze what he does, he's double talking.
Yeah. And
let me ask you guys this, and this is kind of an interesting question. Do you feel now, as Christians in Canada, that you're the minority? Do you feel like you guys are the ones that are being persecuted and you know, turned aside? I mean, Jeannie made me a tinfoil hat. I have this tinfoil hat. I keep it right here on my desk, you know, because people think that I'm nuts for the things that I say. But I mean, are you guys feeling like we used to feel here? Now we're just turning the we're just turning the corner here in the United States, where as
Yeah.
Christians,
Yeah.
we once again start to feel like we have a family. But are you starting to feel alone up there?
Go ahead, Audrey.
Starting to. We're starting to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a big country.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think, like, I mean, as a whole, how popular is Trudeau in Canada, and is Canada waking up ahead or behind of the U.S.? I kind of thinking you guys are now falling behind. You used to be ahead of us.
Well, I mean, I've been watching. There's a couple of conservative leaders, and interestingly enough, a lot of the ones I'm really impressed with are the women. And it seems to be, and this is from the mouth of one of the individuals, Michelle Rempel, who's the MP of Calgary. Love that woman, but she is a pit bull when it comes, and her and Rona Ambrose and Candice Bergen are the three that are constantly on Trudeau and calling him out and keeping him accountable. And he seems to really dislike, as they say, women doing that. So there's a double standard even with how he approaches, interactions with genders, which apparently he doesn't believe there is genders. We're all gender fluid. So there's a whole mishmash, and this is the liberalist, progressive, I would call it regressive approach. That's an experiment that we're going to find out in 20, 30 years if it ever works. Sadly, it's going to be our grandkids that are going to pay the price, and it'll be too late for them to do anything. They're going to have to win their freedoms back the way our forefathers did, with possibly.
And guys, in the midst of all this, when you have all this going on, and this unprotected border, which I'm so sorry you're going through, but you have all of that. What's happening to your economy? I mean, we used to be on nearly an even par dollar for your Canadian dollar, and that's not the case anymore, is it?
No, a lot of it has to do with the oil prices, and just, Alberta has the oil sands here, and Alberta has one of the cleanest, environmentally, conscious plants in the world. We have strict regulations that we must follow, stricter than most countries, stricter than Saudi Arabia, who, Trudeau insists on continuing to accept oil from that country, and yet their carbon footprint, if you want to start getting politically correct here, is horrible. It's worse than Canada ever could be, right? And yet they won't take Alberta oil, but they'll take oil over there. So our economy is really bad. Alberta is really bad. Written down, we have over 100,000 jobs gone in Alberta, but really it's closer to $200,000 or 200,000 people that have no jobs in Alberta alone, and the rest of the country is hurting just as bad as well, because our economy is failing. We've got companies pulling out of Canada that would rather invest in Kazakhstan than to Canada, because it's a risk now.
Wow, I mean, that's interesting stuff, and I gotta say, I mean, I've been up to your country, and I'm going to disclose something here. Some of you may have heard me give my testimony on Pastor Paul Begley's show a week ago, but I've been to your country 3 times and traveled through it into Banff, Lake Louise, just all the beautiful country up there. But do you know, if I was a Muslim, I could come into your country right now, but because I was arrested for a DUI here in America, you guys won't let me in. I can't come to Canada. Right. I mean, what is up with that?
Right.
I mean, and now, was I wrong? Yeah, absolutely I was wrong. And those were in the days before I was saved. But, and we do the same thing here. I mean, our countries sit hand in hand with one another, and that's why I wanted you guys on the show today, because I'm so concerned about what's happening up there, and what can we do to help you? I mean, let's address that question. What can we do here in America to help you as our Canadian brothers and sisters in Christ?
Just be aware of what's happening in Canada. Don't forget that Canada is your neighbor, like you're saying.
Right.
And that, what happens in Canada will happen in the States, and vice versa. What happens in the States will happen in Canada. And be aware. Really start praying for Canada. Pray for our Prime Minister. I mean, he's a person just like the rest of us. Pray for our Prime Minister.
Yeah. The other thing I say, we definitely need the conservatives, the Christians. I wouldn't just lump in Christians with this. I say anyone that's a conservative that cares about the country, to wake up and start to, because if we don't speak up with one voice, that's how really the enemy gets in. We get divided, and Trudeau's trying to do that and he's doing it blindly. I don't even think he knows what he's doing. And
I agree.
He's going to find out. His legacy will be probably the downfall of Canada. It will get to a tipping point where maybe he won't be able to stop it. Right now, if Trump continues with the tariffs that he's adding, it's going to start continuing to drive our dollar down further.
Yeah.
And then we're going to have more jobs lost. We could very well, if he persists with the socialist agenda, which is one step away from communism, I wouldn't be surprised if you'll see pockets of what we see in Venezuela. Maybe not as bad, because I don't think we'll get that far before Canadians who care will rise up. But we've got very strict gun regulations, and I just heard from my dad that they've got some exemptions. So if you've got a religious requirement to wear a face covering, you don't have to have your photo ID taken for your gun card,
right?
Your ID card, which it's bad enough that you actually have to have registration to be able to protect yourself and your family, let alone you can't identify the person on the ID card visually. So that's a concern. We've got all sorts of concerns. Canada is very similar to British parliamentary system. I mean, we've got a history that goes back to the 1700s of being a Christian nation. The founding fathers called Canada the Dominion of Canada in reference to some biblical verses. In fact, one of the colonies, where was it here? Yeah, France, 1534, they came in and started to explore the country. 1759, the British defeated France. They called it British North America, which is really the founding of all of North America. And then you guys in the States rebelled against the British, which is probably the best decision you could have done. I'm going to go out on a limb here and say I wish we would consider some constitutional amendments that would make us more of a republic as opposed to a constitutional monarchy, because we still have the Queen as a figurehead. That's probably going to get me in hot water with people, but I don't care. I've seen the evidence of what Canada's system has produced versus what the States has produced, and I know. Your thoughts, Audrey?
Well, I mean, let's look at this, okay? Where's the hope? How much longer do you guys have to put up with him in office, number one? And number two, where's the hope for Canada? Because we need to hear it so we can be encouraged, and we can pray for you guys. Audrey, why don't you take that first?
I have about 3 more years, just under 3 more years. Yeah. And I mean, everything that he's doing is just so fast. It's so quick. I think everyone's just kind of sitting back stunned, and they don't even know what to do. And liberals too are starting to realize that there's something not right here. And I mean, we're Canadian citizens first, right? It's not, you don't look in terms of parties. We're Canadian citizens, and we love our country. We want to protect our country. We want our country to thrive like it always has. And, we accept anybody in our country, really. I mean, it's a joke. It's a joke around the world, right? So, I think the hope is that people are starting to become aware, that people are starting to pray, and that, programs like this hopefully will get out and just make people want to learn more about what's going on in Canada right now and really dig into the issues like, you know, Bill 89. Like, the implications of that are huge. And that's just in Ontario, and it will spread throughout Canada, and it will come to the United States. It's huge. It's going to affect your kids. I mean, your kids could be taken away from you if you really want to dig into it. That's serious. And as Canadians, we shouldn't stand for that.
Right.
What do you think, Brad?
Well, I think our countries are like our houses. You've heard this analogy probably, that we don't hate the people on the outside. That's not why we lock our front doors. It's because we love those on the inside. And if our country's borders are our front doors, we need to make sure that we're looking after our citizens first. Even the way God kind of instituted government and society rules with Israel, there is strict requirements. If you're going to become part of Israel, as you know, back then, you had to adhere to the laws of that, which would have been God's laws that he had instituted with Israel. But in Canada, the same thing should apply here. If you can't abide by our laws, I think we can stop talking about it as a Islamic problem and just say, you know what, we don't agree with mistreating women. We don't agree with polygamy. We don't agree with mutilating young girls, and or all the attributes of an ideology that doesn't fit with our culture. That, number one, will probably avoid some of the problems we have where this Islamophobia law may become a law. And we need to pray for the rest of the Christians. It's the Christians, I think, that need to stand in the gap. If we don't, in fact, I point the finger at the church largely for why we're where we're at. If we had been doing our job, being salt and light, we wouldn't be here right now. The same, you wouldn't have had Obama for 8 years and Clinton prior to that, if the church had been doing its job. And God said in 2 Chronicles 7:14, if my people who are called by my name will humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, that's 4 things, then I will, he does 3 things, hear from heaven, forgive their sins, and heal their land. So God really promises if we do those 4 things, he will do those 3 things. And he's just saying my people, he's not saying the entire country of Canada or the United States. So we have a lot of influence in the heavenlies. We've got a lot of influence here on earth if we would wake up and do our job.
Wow. I mean, those are powerful words, you guys. And I mean, folks, you know, what you have to realize here about Brad and about Audrey, they're our brothers and sisters. They are just on the other side of the border. They are our neighbors. You know, we're not separated by an ocean. We are right side by side. Canada, actually, I don't know if you know this, but Canada has fought in almost every single conflict that the United States has had by our side as our allies. Their veterans fought with us. And so we need to do everything we can to support them and to pray for them and to be there. You guys, you know, I mean, we're going to have to wrap this up shortly, but I mean, we can, and I think what we're going to do is we're going to have you guys back on again, like in a week or so, to dig deeper. But I did want to get into one thing before we go. What is up with this whole thing about the Sharia law in Canada? What is up with that? I mean, what we hear down here is that you've adopted Sharia law up there. Is that true?
Not quite. If I can find, it's called M103, so motion 103. So it's not a law, it's just a motion. The next step would be to turn it into a bill, and then the next step after that would be to turn it into law. So M103, it calls on the government to condemn Islamophobia and all forms of systemic racism and religious discrimination. The motion also calls on the Heritage Committee of the House of Commons to study the problem and make recommendations on how to combat such discrimination. Well, what does Islamophobia really entail and mean, right? Like, nobody really has a definition on that yet.
Right.
And see, this is kind of the double talk that I'm kind of talking about, is Canada already has laws against hate speech and things like that. Sections 3.1 318 and 319, sections 318 and 319, 3120, or 320 in the Criminal Code of Canada, all talks to, you know, hate speech and propaganda and things like that. So we already have that in place in Canada, and yet now we're coming in with M103 that basically states the same thing, but it singles out Islamophobia. Well, you know, you again flip it. Well, then are you going to stand up when Christians start getting persecuted and called out and whatever? You know, like, this is what Canada doesn't, a lot of Canadians don't understand, is we already, I mean, the things that he puts in place are things we already have and follow anyways. And what that does is it makes us look like, as Canadian citizens, that, you know, we hate everybody. Like I keep saying, well, no, we don't. And we follow our laws that are in our Constitution, you know, just like anyone coming into Canada should as well. We already have laws. So they call it the Sharia law, the M103, because it singles out Islam. Right. You know, take that out then. Take it out. And then we wouldn't have, you know, that the reputation of bringing in Sharia law.
Brad, what do you have to say on that?
I've been watching this with bated breath because even the hate speech laws we've had on the books have muzzled pastors in churches, for example. If they preach on Romans 1, even I remember our pastor saying this a couple of years ago. He said, you know, there's certain things I can't read. You can read it as a congregation, but if I were to read it from the pulpit, there could be people in the audience that would then record that, take it back. That already is infringing on free speech, in my opinion. We should be able to speak our minds. But this bill is not about controlling speech as much as it is about forcing people to self-censor. I've already found in the last few months since this materialized, I've even making a subconscious and conscious effort of what I say on Facebook. Yeah. I shouldn't have to. Unless you go from Facebook to Audrey and I are over on MeWe now, mewe.com. So a little plug for those guys. We don't get any money from them, but it's a censorship-free platform that's hopefully an alternative to Facebook because of it's rampant. It's not just in Canada. You see it in some of your states. California is very liberal and socialist, it seems like. So we got to push back.
Listen, you guys, I mean, we are here for you. I want you to truly know that. And I think that this show has been important. And I think what we're going to do, I don't care if it only gets 10 views or it gets 100,000 views. We're going to continue with a series here, speaking to you guys about what's happening in Canada and what we need to all do to stay up to date. But now on a kind of a fun note now, Audrey, you've been to 3, I think, Hear the Watchman conferences now. You were just in Dallas with us, and we had a wonderful time there. Jeannie tells me that you and your husband Brian you're gonna come to Boise, Idaho, and you're gonna witness the total eclipse of the sun. And I think I finally hooked Brad in, and Brad will actually be there for this one.
It took an eclipse of the sun to get me there, right?
Audrey, what can you tell Brad about the Hear the Watchman conferences?
What I love about Hear the Watchman conferences is they actually give a solution to that question of now what, right? So we hear about all this stuff going on and we go and learn about it, but a lot of people that come to the conferences are new to the information, or they don't know what to do either, and they want to know, when I go home, now what? And I think Hear the Watchman actually tries to answer and does answer that question of now what. Even as far as, you know, connecting with people, you need people of like mind to talk to. You need people to pray for you. You need all of that. You need that support group, I guess, and that's what they try to do. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. And I'll tell you what, if Brad's RV breaks down or anything like that, I'm going to charge you to go get him and snatch him up and make sure that he makes it to Boise, Idaho, August 18th through the 21st. Folks, go to our website, hearthewatchman.com. check it out. I mean, it's not, this particular conference is not just a conference. It's really an entire experience. I mean, we have a gentleman by the name of Zev Porat, who is a Messianic rabbi who is coming all the way from Israel to speak to the people at this conference. He's an amazing guy. I mean, just amazing. He goes out on the streets and preaches the love of Jesus in Israel. It's just going to be a wonderful experience. Guys, I really want to thank you both for taking the time to be here. Folks, I want you to know, Audrey and Brad are just ordinary citizens of Canada. They are just, you know, they took their time this morning to join us and to talk a little bit about what's happening in Canada. We're going to have them back. We're going to talk more about it. I think it's important for all of us to be educated on what's going on up there, and for all of us to pray. The hope is in Jesus. The hope is in the Bible. The hope is there for both our countries. But we have to take a stand against some of this stuff that's going on. And we can take is to let our voices be heard on YouTube like this, then that's all good. But at least we do something. Audrey, Brad, thank you so much for joining us today.
You're welcome.
All right. Thank you.
All right, guys, until the next Hear the Watchman's Report, God bless each and every one of you. Go out there, be safe, but also I want you to go out and do something for Jesus today. Get off the couch, go out, give a homeless guy a sandwich, whatever you got to do something for Jesus today. And God bless each and every one of you.